Argyle and Brenna walked into the Wilsham Tenement. Its under-repaired and moldering state was bad, even for the slums. They walked past a pair of mangy-looking fellows who stank of stale liquor. One of them called at Brenna.
"Hey there, sweet thing!"
Brenna kept walking, uncomfortably. She looked at the cracked and peeling walls, and spots where leaks had laid tiny pools over the many months.
"Argyle, I don't like this place at all."
The muffled sounds of raised voices echoed here and there throughout the crowded building. "I have more of a reason to dislike it than you, and I'm here." Brenna plugged her nose as they passed by a pile of refuse. Its contents were perceivably that of rotting food scraps and filthy diaper cloths.
"Who runs this place? Orcs?"
"I wouldn't be surprised." There, in the hall of this run-down apartment building, the two allies waited. They saw a number of people come and go, mostly men who looked of impoverished stock. Some were grizzled old drunkards, and others wore the hard-cast looks of criminals. The danger was apparent, and the two youths kept themselves on guard. Argyle had his dagger ready to draw at a moment's notice. The leather vest and boots he wore, along with his thick coat jacket, were enough to provide some basic protection. Brenna had brought her quarterstaff with her, and she quietly hummed and recited songs. This was partly to stave off the nervousness of the situation, and partly to rehearse those words she wove with bardic magic. An hour passed, when Charlie came through the front door of the building, wearing the mail and tabard of the city watch, and hauling a red-faced Rufus with his hands shackled. Their entrance caused quite a disturbance amongst the few rough tenants who were hanging around. A few men on the stairway stood, looking both threatening and nervous. Charlie looked around and nudged Rufus forward. They had just made the base of the stairs when Argyle and Brenna showed themselves. "Charlie, I see you've got the bastard."
"Aye, now let's get on with it."
Rufus, upon eyeing his two rivals, was roused to great agitation. He interjected their words with shouting.
"You! It's you the guard should have under arrest, not me!"
"You are murderer! I know your secret hidden in the attic above. It's time to face the consequences."
"Over my dead body! You think you have the upper hand here, but you're wrong, boy. I know many more people than you. You're nothing but a small-time street rat!"
Rufus immediately focused his shouting to the men on the stairs.
"Get Devon and the others! Help quick!"
One began running up the stairs, apparently to get aid, while two started down to assist Rufus. The drunkards at the door moved in, with intimidating looks on their faces. Brenna spots the two brutish brawlers approaching from the entryway. She shouts, her mockery interwoven with psychic magic. The drunken ruffian is angered, but little more. She takes a step back. The two men on the stairs draw clubs from their ragged tunics and approach Charlie, who is holding a lantern in one hand and grasping Rufus with the other. They scowl and swing their crude weapons, bashing into Charlie's arm and helmet. Argyle, seeing the immediate danger, dashes forward, drawing his dagger. He takes aim and makes a well-placed thrust. The thug howls in agony as Argyle's dagger pierces into his back. He falls to the ground, bleeding and moaning. The moment Charlie is distracted by the outburst of violence, Rufus struggles against his captor and wriggles free. Hands still bound by iron manacles, he darts up the stairs.
"You're going to wish you never came here!"
With foes approaching to the front and back, Charlie quickly realizes he must defend himself. He steps to the side, hastily setting down his lantern on the floor. He attaches his light shield to his left arm, then draws his long sword.
"What have you got me into?"
Charlie shouts to Argyle. "Nothing we can't handle, I hope."
"Watch out, Charlie! Here they come!"
The ale-stained brute takes a quick swig of his frothy ale, then tosses the mug aside. He approaches Charlie, then dives in for an all-out brawl, hands grasping wildly. Charlie swings his sword defensively, forcing the brute to concede his attack. The second haggard fellow grips his wine bottle by the neck and charges in at Charlie, yelling madly. He smashes the makeshift club on Charlie's shoulder, leaving the bottle broken and jagged. Again, Brenna looses a string of arcane-touched insults at the brute. This time, the words clutch his mind, causing him to become reckless. The club-wielding man steps to flank Charlie. Charlie blocks his crude attack with a sweep of his longsword. Up the stairs, on the floor above, a commotion is heard. The sound of Rufus' nerve-wrecked voice is echoed by the sound of several other voices, angry and perturbed.
Do you hear that? It sounds like there's more of them up there.
Damn! Let's hope those manacles hold out.
Argyle, making use of his impressive natural agility, takes 2 quick steps, one over the fallen man, and the second as part of an oddly dexterous stab. His blade catches nothing but air, though. Above, Rufus can be heard shouting,
Come on, get them off!
Charlie's sword, as well, does not find its target, as the man with the broken bottle dodges out of the way. On the rebound, the man stabs the bottle's jagged edges. Despite Brenna's mockery, he thrusts the sharp glass into Charlie's chainmail. A few drops of blood spill from the wound. The man's comrade again tries to pummel and grab Charlie, and again is foiled. Brenna casts another mocking verse, failing to affect the lurching drunk. The club wielder, being harried by Argyle, shifts to flank him. His club cracks Argyle on the arm. Despite his blow, Argyle notices that his confidence has waned at the sight of his ally writhing on the ground in pain. Argyle lunges at him with a piercing stab, striking with such accuracy that his blade finds an unprotected spot between the man's ribs. Gasping, he falls to the floor. Argyle, losing no time, steps nimbly into a better position. The sound from upstairs shifts from men shouting to that of boots clumping upon the old wooden floors. Nearby, a tenant woman pokes her head out her door to see what all the commotion is. Upon spying the lethal brawl, she screams and promptly slams her door shut. Charlie looks concerned as blood drips from the jagged glass puncture. Argyle throws him a glance.
Well, did you train to use that blade or not?
Charlie responds by slashing at the one who just stabbed him, succeeding on a light but accurate cut.
It sounds like they're running to the other stairway.
Maybe they're trying to run away.
Probably not. The brutish brawler clobbers Charlie and in an instant moves into a basic grapple. His ally thrusts the jagged wine bottle, which merely breaks away some on the guardsman's shield. Brenna's voice becomes a sweet melody, which rises above the violence. Its sound soothes Charlie and gives him vigor. As well, the interlaced magic guides Charlie out of the brawler's grab. She then jogs up to the other drunkard, readies her quarterstaff, and calls to Argyle.
Argyle, now!
As Argyle moves in, they spot a gang of rough-looking men, having just moved down the opposite staircase, and now making haste towards the fight, bearing clubs and knives.
It's about to get worse!
Brenna keeps her concentration, though, and as Argyle moves into flanking position, she strikes out with her staff, fueling the attack with bardic magic. The blow strikes the man square in the face. Blood begins to gush from his nose. Brenna's attack leaves the man vulnerable, and Argyle strikes from behind with another piercing thrust of his dagger. His quick blade sends the brute crashing to the floor, unconscious from his overwhelming wounds. Rufus, now unbound from his manacles, creeps down the far staircase, dagger in hand. Too apprehensive to rush into the melee, he slinks back, waiting for an opportunity. Charlie, invigorated by Brenna's curative melody, approaches the man who had just grabbed him. He swings his sword, landing a well-placed slash and engaging the scummy brawler. Following behind Rufus comes Davin, a tall and powerfully built man, wearing leathers and carrying a hand crossbow. He is dressed in a long, dark cloak. At his side, a mace is hung. Like Rufus, he makes use of a position covered by the wall. He takes careful aim at Brenna, who is distracted by the fighting, and looses a bolt, which flies to stick into the wall a mere hair's distance from her. At a closer distance, that shot would have landed true. Brenna let out a shriek.
Look out! He's got a crossbow!
You're all dead, mate! Davin shouts as he reloads his one-handed crossbow. Brenna moves to get out of the line of fire. She swings her quarterstaff at the man engaged with Charlie. It cracks him upside the head, sending blood trickling down into his face. A second later, the rabble charging down the corridor arrives to join the struggle. They swing clubs and crude knives, swearing and shouting all the while. Charlie, with his mail and steel shield, absorbs their attempts. Argyle and Brenna, however, sustain light wounds. Argyle grits his teeth and stabs at the man in melee with Charlie. His dagger easily slips past the drunken brute's reflexes. The oaf remains standing, though is cut deep. Rufus, still on edge from the brutal brawl erupting before him, slinks through the hall. Though Charlie's lantern illuminates it well, Rufus is a sneak, used to hiding and lurking unseen. He darts quickly into a closer hall, hoping to lose any onlookers. Argyle and Charlie, keen of perception, both spot him, though. Charlie catches the man in front of him with a quick cut, and though the wound would normally be light, it is too much for the brute to bear on top of his other injuries. He falls over, bleeding. Charlie turns to face the wave of brawlers that have descended upon his party.
I agreed to help expose one man. Now I'm fighting for my life!
As are we. How was I supposed to know this place was a den of thugs?
Davin moves down the hall and takes careful aim at Charlie. His bolt deflects off Charlie's shield. Cursing in frustration, Davin holsters his hand crossbow. Brenna turns towards Rufus, whose vile presence offends her even more than the brutish slob that just slugged her. Drawing upon her magician's skill, she sends a mental fog into Rufus's mind. Rufus grips his head as his mind is scoured. Momentarily charmed and confused, he blunders forward into the pile of stinking refuse.
Ha! Right where you belong!
Ugh! Get her!
The brawling rabble shifts positions, stepping over collapsed forms, striking out wildly. One clubs Brenna in the back, another cuts her forearm, drawing blood. Charlie, too, is struck. Argyle alone eludes their mobbing blows. He counters with a piercing jab of his dagger, felling the man who had Brenna's blood on his knife. Protectively, he then interposes himself between Brenna and one of the mob. Rufus, sickened by the filth he had stumbled into, dashes back down the hall to again gain a concealed location. Charlie brings down his longsword, lopping off a brute's arm.
This drunken rabble has no chance against an armored soldier. Davin, call off your dogs!
Davin, undaunted by the guardsman's threat, hollers back.
Stand your ground! We run this building, not they!
Backing his words with action, Davin draws his iron mace and charges ruthlessly at Charlie. Charlie, however, parries with his sword. Brenna steps back and sends a vicious mockery at the club-wielding goon harrying her. He merely laughs in her direction. The man then flanks Charlie and manages to land a grazing blow. Argyle, too, is struck, and blood starts to drip from his brow. In another attempt to aid Brenna, Argyle strikes the thug to his left. His body and blade move with acrobatic agility, moving him forward even as the ruffian falls to the floor. With his momentum building, Argyle sprints up the first few steps, then goes to leap over the handrail. His stunt is misjudged, unfortunately, and Argyle crashes to his palms and knees on the wooden stairs. Rufus, having sufficiently hid, creeps back to the end of the hall, dagger in hand. With the opportunism of a knave, he He flings his dagger at Charlie. The blade slices at a gap in his armor. He winces painfully at the wound. With Davin directly in front of him, Charlie strikes at the tall, cloaked brute. His long sword bites hard, splitting the thug leader's leather gauntlet. Davin shouts in pain, his hand wounded and bloody. In a fit of anger, Davin moves to flank Charlie. This momentarily leaves him vulnerable, and Charlie takes the opportunity and hits with a quick, light stab. His wounded hand hampering him, Davin looses a furious shout. He swings his mace, which connects only with Charlie's shield. Brenna, inspired by her comrade's skill, moves to Davin and swings her quarterstaff. As she does so, she sings a bardic line, a tune of war and the cunning of warriors. Her strike lands a mere glancing blow, however, bruising Davin's chest. The thug flanking Charlie swings his basic weapon, beating at Charlie's mail, slowly wearing him down. Argyle picks himself up and springs a step to his right as he strikes at Davin. The advantage given by the flank allows him to strike a vulnerable spot on Davin's back. The gang leader cries out in pain as Argyle's dagger stings sharply. Argyle gathers his thoughts and quickly follows up his attack with a second strike.